Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Series 6 Episode 3, The Curse of the Black Spot. I don't want to be too long with this one because the last one, oh god! Like the Pandora Opens Big Bang one, that one seemed to be fucking cursed. And it's turned out to be too long. So, let's try and keep this one pretty short. Okay, so Curse of the Black Spot. The plot sees the Doctor, Amy, and Rory arrive on the pirate ship Fancy, which is not actually named in the episode, but it is named in its own prequel slash prologue, but it's called prequel Minnesota. That came before. This is the only episode that isn't a opening or closing episode to the part one or part two to get a prequel. Episodes 1, 7, 8, and 13 got them in this series. But episode 3 also got one for some reason, and it was originally supposed to be episode 9 or episode 10 in this series, before it was swapped with Night Terrors, which was episode 4, and then swapped around with episode 3, which was The Doctor's Wife, meaning that The Curse of the Black Spot is now 3rd, The Doctor's Wife is 4th, and Night Terrors is 9th, and if this one was supposed to be 10th, then The Girl Who Waited was probably supposed to be 9th, and that's now 10th. I think the only difference is that the changing of the end of the Doctor reading about his death is now changed to the Doctor reading about Amy and Rory's pregnancy for this episode, and changed to the death for Night Terrors. And in Night Terrors, you had Kavarin moving her slat, saying something similar to what she says here, but with this moved to be here and Night Terrors moved to the other side, then they had to be redone or partly redone and put here instead. Oh yeah, that strange woman with the hatch was introduced in the last episode. I forgot to mention that. I was intending to, but I missed it because I was a bit busy. But yeah, there's this strange woman who's opening sort of hatches, just randomly in episodes. Yeah, well, so I suppose that's this episode's contribution to the series arc. Yeah, so much for priority. Anyway, so the Doctor, Amy, and Rory are on this pirate ship called Fancy, where they meet the captain, Avery, who is supposed to be named after the pirate Avery mentioned in The Smugglers, but it's not the same person. He's just named after them. So yeah, and it turns out that this ship is being picked on by a siren who comes after the sick and wounded whenever there's still water or reflections, as it turns out. So the Doctor and his TARDIS team have to team up with the crew of the pirate ship to try and stop members of the crew, including the captain's son Toby, who they discover has stowed aboard the ship. And they have to try and stop the siren from coming after Rory, who is gotten a cut and has now been infected, as well as Toby's got the fever, and anyone else who gets the black spot, which is their mark for death, supposedly. So that's the basic setup for the Curse of the Black Spot. And twists and turns are apparent in this episode. As it turns out, the siren is actually a holographic doctor who is unable to heal people, so she has some. She's from an alien spaceship which occupies the same sort of space, but in a different universe to the pirate ship. This is something similar to what happened in the Stones of Blood, except not in warp drive. It's a sci-fi concept, but it turns out she's a stowaway on that ship, and she's also a doctor, but she can't actually heal people, which makes her a pretty bad doctor. And because she wasn't able to heal the other aliens, not sure why not, when they caught alien germs which killed them, she then started to try and heal all the pirates on the ship that they collided with in the other world, so to speak, and has been taking people there. The black spot is a tissue sample, and instead of kidnapping people to kill, she's been kidnapping people to save the lives of. So, yeah, but before we get to that, there's so many twists and turns and all around. First, we think she's a siren coming after people who get cuts because she comes out of water. Then it turns out it's not just the sea, it's any water, and so they go somewhere that's dry. Then it turns out it's not just cuts and bruises, it's illness, and then it turns out it's not just water, still water, it's reflections. And then it turns out there's the whole she's an alien, not a siren, and then it turns out she's a doctor, not a killer, and we're just getting all over the place with all these twists and turns. Maybe if we got the twist sooner, it would have been a bit better. And it's a bit too many subversions all in one episode. The supporting characters also aren't that great. Henry Avery's all right and played well by Hugh Bonneville. The other characters are okay, but they're not too great. The best one's probably Toby. In fact, this child actor is pretty good. We got quite a few good child actors this series. There's one or two exceptions. I think the child actor from the last two episodes wasn't particularly great, but I wasn't talking about her when I said exceptions. I think she did all right with what she had. But there is definitely an exception coming up that, oh boy. I won't go too harsh, but we'll get to them. But Toby here, a great child actor with playing this character, and Toby's a pretty likable guy. Like I said, the other pirates aren't that particularly memorable. The main companions also aren't that great. Although Karen Gillan is absolutely stunning, she's always beautiful, but she's even more beautiful in that sexy pirate outfit. Well, I say sexy. It's not a Halloween outfit. It's an ordinary pirate outfit, but she looks absolutely stunning as a pirate. But yeah, apart from that and having to save the Doctor in a sword fight, she doesn't do an awful lot. And Rory also doesn't get an awful lot apart from having to be he gets the black spot. He's been marked for death, and then he almost drowns. The Siren has to save him, and yeah, it seems like it's time to kill off Rory again, which is going to be a running theme throughout this series. Not to mention Amy and the Doctor recently. Amy almost died and then was brought back to life as well, and the Doctor supposedly dies, and that's one of the main series arcs of the series. So yeah, it seems like the writers keep wanting to kill off main characters. This would be alright. It was a permanent death in a shocking way for a main character after a bit of time coming to know them. But in these cases, Pandoric Opens kind of did that as a kind of a cliffhanger. But it's not really well handled here, and it's starting to get repetitive. In fact, it's becoming a pattern, so to speak, especially with Rory. Not really much more to say about the plot. The plot's not really that great. It's a fun, interesting pirate story to begin with, but it starts getting bogged down with twists and turns later on. The sci-fi angle is interesting, but by this point, it's not really that interesting. Could have been more interesting if it was half and half, maybe, or if it happened a little bit sooner, and the Doctor realizing to him, Amy, and Avery to prick themselves so that they would also follow Rory, Toby, and the others with the Siren as a possibility that they might not be dead. That's not actually. He doesn't actually have any leads for that. Instead, it's more like we've got nothing else we can do. We can gamble this. Also, the plot's wrapping up in 5 to 10 minutes time. We've got to hurry up. Yeah, it's not that great as a story. Supporting characters aren't that great. The ship location is pretty cool. But after that, not so much. And also, once the pirate stuff has stopped and it becomes a race to stop people from being taken by the Siren, the pirate ship angle and the fact that they're pirates, they could be swapped out with anything. Once the Siren gets introduced for the first time, they can be swapped out with anything. So yeah, this story's all right. It's got some decent moments. There's some great comedy, especially from Matt Smith, and there's some decent stuff in here, and some good acting. But overall, I think the plot's not so great. The cinematography and editing is done really well, but on a plot side, it's not really that spectacular. There's also some things in the TARDIS where she has a bit of a hissy fit for absolutely no reason, apart from so the TARDIS can not be an option for them to use as an escape route. It would have made more sense if something was blocking the way, or if the Siren had captured the TARDIS, or at the very least say that the Siren had brought the TARDIS alongside so that she could heal that, and then the TARDIS felt a lot better once she was there, so she was able to leave without any problems. Boy. So overall, The Curse of the Black Spot, I think this is a meh episode. I don't think it's that particularly great. It's more enjoyable when you watch it, but it's not that great when you think about it. It's a meh episode. It's all right. Okay. Yeah, pretty meh. So overall, I will be giving The Curse of the Black Spot a 6 out of 10. I don't think it's bad enough to be a 5. Yeah, I don't think it's bad enough to be a 5 because the cinematography and the editing is pretty good. The crew do a really great job, and the actors, most of them at least anyway. Well, the actors all do a great job, but Matt Smith is phenomenal as usual. So it at least looks really good, and there's some good deep bits of comedy, but the story isn't that great after the whole pirate stuff. You could swap the location out after those first couple of minutes, and not all the supporting characters are that interesting, and the villain's not even that great either. She's not even an actual villain. She turns out actually she'd be on their side, a bit like in Twice Upon a Time, and that was a down factor to that story, that the villains weren't actually that great, and they turned out not to be actual villains. It's all right to have a twist of them not being villains, but it just by this point the characters felt still a little bit weak, and we'd had so many twists and turns all over the place anyway. I get I know writer Steve Thompson kind of had this as the whole thing as the Siren being a doctor as sort of his plan, but the way we got to it was kind of was a bit disjointed. So that's a shame. Sorry, Steve Thompson, but your first Doctor Who script wasn't that great. Then again, I liked your first Sherlock story a bit more, though that one had a few weaker elements. His second Sherlock story would definitely be a lot better than his second Doctor Who script would be. I think that might be the complete opposite. And then his third ones, well, it was a co-writes with Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss for Sherlock, and with Stephen Moffat for Doctor Who, although that one may have been more of his story whilst being more of a contributor for Sherlock. And both of those were really, really great and, yeah, pretty entertaining. So yeah, Steve Thompson, you've got 2 more episodes to redeem yourself in the eyes of the Doctor Who fans, and the next one is apparently the worst of his 3, so, yeah. Oh dear. So that's it from my review of Doctor Who The Curse of the Black Spot. I tried to not make this one too long following the last one. Oh god, I'm so sorry, you guys. Anyway, next time is an episode I'm really looking forward to seeing again. The Doctor's Wife, written by Neil Gaiman, featuring Saran Jones as Idris, aka the TARDIS, in human form. Well, the consciousness of the TARDIS is placed into the body of this human woman. But yeah, basically the TARDIS in human form, and the return of the Ood, or Aoud anyway. So there's and the Junk TARDIS. The Junk TARDIS is in the next episode, so that's something to look forward to. Ignore that's wrapping paper. So yeah, there's quite a lot to look forward to in the next episode, and I'll see you guys then. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. I think the only differences between with the changes is that in the Curse of the Black Spot, then it turns out it's reflection. Yeah. And he does a good job. In fact, apart from maybe 1 or 2 kids this series, the child actors had. We'll get onto them later on, but we got some pretty good child actors here. So yeah, I think and that's the whole series arc of the thing, alongside the additional 2 for part 1 and part 2. And that's the whole series arc. It's just, we could take this gamble, I guess, as opposed to like. If it made more. Oh god, I'm sorry to me.